we are drinking wine. How you guys doing today? Woo-hoo. Oh, yeah. Okay. Here we go. Did a kind of crappy job here. Okay, a little bit so upside down. We are having this Pinot Grigio. It looks like you pronounce it Bottega Vinaya. Okay. It's an estate bottle, year's 2017. And I'm also gonna be cooking some calabacitas with some rice. I don't know if I'm gonna do a white rice or if I'm gonna do una sopa de arroz, a Mexican one with like a tomato sauce. So stay tuned with me, guys. And let me do the first pour. Look at my glass. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it kind of says my name on it. Maybe if I put it here. You see, it says Adriana. They got it engraved. I think that's pretty cool. Just do a little pour for now. All right, you guys. Let's get to cooking.
Well, what if I did?
90% of a woman's...
Okay, guys, so in this section, I just decided to fast forward all the chopping and the dicing, whatever it's called. I'm not a chef. But you can just see me here starting to chop up the calabacitas. I guess you can say I diced them. I cut them in half and then in half again, and then that half I do it in little slices and then chop them up across. I don't know if I'm explaining myself right. But yeah, you just keep on dicing. I actually got too many calabacitas here for just, me and my boyfriend Eddie. But leftovers never hurt, and they're always pretty good still. So, I mean, what flavorful food isn't good the next day? You know what I mean? And me, myself, I grew up on leftovers, so it's really not that big of a deal. Have you guys ever had calabacitas? Do you guys make them a different way? The way we make them is we just, again, it's the calabacitas. We keep it real simple. Onions, some chili, and some tomato. My mom just told me not too long ago that actually my grandma doesn't even put tomato in them, that she only does it with chili and onion. I was like, we've always made them with tomato. She's like, yeah, I know. I totally forgot. She's like, I don't know where I started. She's like, I don't know when I started adding tomato to the calabacitas. She's like, but my mom just told me, my grandma told her, no, I don't put tomato in mine. So we were like, oh, okay. Okay, and here we're just going to start chopping up the tomato. Again, just dice it up. They don't have to be super small, super big, just like bite size, I guess you could say would be the perfect size for them. I mean, the last thing you want is like a big chunk of tomatoes after you just cut up the calabacitas kind of small. But yeah, just keep chopping away. This is the first process of it. It's the chopping. I don't know. Personally, I'm not a big fan of chopping. My mom would probably be mad at me for saying that because she's been working as a cook for so long. But she's always like, make sure everything's even, make sure it looks cute. I'm like, it's all gonna get eaten anyways, Mom. But here we go. Here we have the chile serrano. I used serrano this time just because when I went to the meat market, that's where I get all my items from. They didn't have any good looking jalapenos. Now with the serrano chile, if you want to take out the seeds, you totally can, by all means. If you want it to be a little bit spicier, you can go ahead and leave the seeds in there. Serranos do tend to be a little bit more spicier than jalapenos, so just keep that in mind. And then here we go, we're gonna start chopping up the onion. Onions make me cry, so they are my least favorite thing to chop in the world. There's this thing Mexicans say that, if you cry while you're chopping onions, you're probably a very jealous person. In my case, it might apply to me. But yeah, again, with the onions, just chop them, dice them. You want to make sure that your onion are probably the smallest pieces that you have throughout this meal, just because you don't want to bite into a big chunk of onion. It's definitely not fun. I mean, at least not for me. I'm not a big fan of onion, unless it's cooked. If it's raw, like on my burgers, nope, leave it out. No bueno. So I always make sure that the onion is chopped up, pretty small. That way I don't get a big bite of it in my food. And then, you see, here I am. I'm crying, I'm telling you. There's the proof. So I take a sip out of my wine. Apparently, like, that's going to help my eyes. And continue back to chopping. Yeah, I chopped up quite a bit of onion, probably a little bit too much that I didn't need. I actually ended up putting some of it away for another day because I really didn't need that much. I used it the next morning to make some, potatoes. And here we go, you guys. So in your skillet, make sure your your oil is nice and hot. You want to get that sizzling sound in there. If you don't hear a sizzle when you drop the onions and your chilies in there, it's not hot enough. Not like it's a big deal, but my mama always told me, make sure your oil's hot whenever you start cooking anything. Because, in some cases, some stuff do tend to stick to the pan, and then it can mess up the food, and that's really what you don't want. Here again, we're just, I'm just showing you more video. I always start with the onion and the chile because I feel like they take a little bit longer. But I also feel like the onion cook takes a bit, and you'll want to make sure that the onion is like translucent looking. Once you get that onion to get to that translucent looking type of way, that's when you add in the tomato. And you just kind of want to cook down the tomato until it kind of starts to like break down, or like the juice, the jugo from the tomatoes comes out. And which it's looking like it's right about done right now. And then as soon as that's done, you're going to go ahead and add in your calabacitas to the rest of the mixture. And you add them there. So I added salt, pepper, garlic powder for my seasoning, and that's pretty much all I used. You could add more stuff if you want to, like onion powder, garlic, salt. Again, I only use salt, pepper, and garlic powder, and of course I used olive oil to saute all of this together. What else can I tell you? I've done it with crushed red chilies before. I've done it, like I said, with jalapenos. You can add whatever seasonings to your liking, but I just like to keep it very simple because I don't like to overpower the calabacitas. I want that to be my main dish, I want that to be the main thing. So here we're going to start our rice. I do about like 1 cup of rice. I use some tomato sauce, some onion, and some Nor seasoning. So we call it Nor Suiza, so caldo con sabor de pollo. I use about half of a tomato sauce, and I blend all of that with the onion together. I will tell you guys, with the rice, you want to make sure that the rice is drained. You want the water to be running clear when you're rinsing that out. And again, make sure your oil is hot. You see right here in my pan, the oil was hot. It did a sizzling sound when it went in. And you just want to keep stirring that around. And here we go. I'm going to show you my mixture of my tomato sauce. I used about half a can. I added a splash of water to that too when I mixed it with the cebolla. And then I'm about to add that to the rice as soon as it turns golden brown. So here it's golden brown. This is exactly what you want it to look like. Once it gets to that golden brown color, you can go ahead and add the tomato sauce mixture, and you mix it all together first, and then you're going to add water to the pot. Here I'm about to add more water. So for every cup of rice, I usually try to add 2 cups of water. So if you want it perfectly, you can measure. I've always just eyeballed all of my ingredients, and when my mom teaches me how to cook, she's like, un poquito de esto y le echas un puñito de acá. So it's very never exact measurement. It's always kind of just like looking and tasting. That's just the Mexican way, I guess. So here, I forgot to add my seasoning when I blended everything. So it's not a big deal. You can always add it after. I get my seasoning and I'm adding it to the pot. Again, seasoning is totally up to you, however you like it. I just added like about 2 teaspoons of that mixture to my rice. I'm mixing it all together. I want that to dissolve because the last thing you want is someone to bite into a big chunk of that. It has happened to me before, which is why I say it from experience. But you just keep mixing, and then you're gonna let this guy get to a boil before you put a lid on it. Reason why, I don't know. My mom just always told me, let it come to a boil before you put the lid on it. So I just do what my mom tells me. Who doesn't, right? Especially in the kitchen. I'm not gonna jeopardize my food. And here you can see it's starting to bubble up. You can see the little bubbles. And this is where I'm gonna get my lid. I did have it on high heat before. I think I forgot to mention that. So after I put my lid on, I'm gonna put the heat down to like medium to low. And you're just gonna let it simmer and do its thing for about 20 to 25 minutes. Don't try to go back to it and stir it and move it. And there is an appropriate time for that, which will be coming up, and I will show you exactly what I'm talking about. So about halfway through the cooking point, that's when you kind of want to check it out. So what I do is I take a fork and I just kind of make a little, separate the rice in between, make sure there's enough liquid. If there's still a lot of liquid, you're good. If you need liquid, this would be the time for you to add it. This is closer to the end of the rice cooking. What I'm doing now is I'm mixing everything together because sometimes the sauce does tend to separate and, you know, go to the sides of it. So I just kind of mix everything together and fluff it. A lot of people say never touch your rice when it's cooking. In this case, I don't think it's a big deal because there's very little liquid left. So I just mixed everything together. The heat was on very low, and I think I turned it off after this, and I just let it cook in its own steam for like another 2 to 3 minutes with a lid on. And then this is me taking the lid off. Here you can see that the rice is done. It's not too mushy, but it's not too dry either. And then here we have the calabacitas, you know, ready to go. Again, the calabacitas, you want a translucent looking kind of color to them as well. That's how you know they're kind of done. Again, just taste it. That's totally fine. Here, I'm going to put some queso fresco on my calabacitas. So you can be any queso fresco from whatever you want. This one I just buy again from my local carniceria. Great place that I go to. And you guys, this is the final dish. We've got some rice, some calabacitas, some queso fresco. You can add some salsa to it. You can put beans on the side. But again, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.